Welcome to your magic moon message. You see that street light right there? There's no way you see that street light. All right, the moon is in Aquarius, electricity. Whew. And the sun is in Virgo. Damn, I give all these landmarks. How much times have I doxed myself doing this series? All right. We are integrating this Virgo cycle, okay? I'm not gonna lie, I have not really hopped in the shower or anything. I'm just realizing right now. I'm taking this walk, and then I know I'm gonna sweat during this walk, so I'm gonna freshen up after. But had to give it to you raw and ready and rugged. Which, forgive me, Virgo. I know this is like unforgivable during your season, but you know you the realist, so I had to just come from a real place. Don't even know why I said that. Anyway, the moon is in Aquarius, guys. Easily the most diabolical zodiac sign. And yeah, I just wanted to remind you, Virgo is diet Scorpio. Okay, Virgo is diet Scorpio. You see, Scorpio is who you guys think Virgo is. Okay, y'all look at Scorpio like, oh yeah, they're kind of harsh, but they mean well. Turns out they're evil. Shout out to my non-evil Scorpios watching this. And then Scorpio is who y'all think Virgo is. All right, you look at Virgo, you're like, oh, they're a hater. Turns out, no, they're good people. They're just really, really critical. All right, and I'm tired of seeing this hate go be misplaced. Y'all be hating on Virgo, thinking that they Scorpio. Y'all be giving the benefit of the doubt to Scorpio, thinking they Virgo. It doesn't work like that, guys. It doesn't work like that. Anyway, other than that, shout out to Scorpio, shout out to Virgo. Scorpio, I know you got hitmen. Don't, please. I didn't mean to hate. Capricorn, I know you got hitmen too. But other than that, yes. We are coming into a supernatural, aka celestial, aka advanced integration of these new behavioral patterns. So we activated it with the new moon in Virgo. We manifested the balance and potency through Libra, which is extending now through Aquarius. We strengthened the activation of our psychology through Scorpio, psychoanalytical activation of analytical patterns or behavioral patterns. And then we began to integrate through the moon in Sagittarius. This gave us a higher perspective, a higher vision of the meaning of these habits we are beginning to form. This is around the time that I pulled my back muscle. Thankfully, of course, though, it's feeling a lot better. And thank you guys for your helpful comments. Definitely gonna pause on the running. I lost more weight walking anyway, so I'm gonna just be walking everywhere again. That being said, once this began to show us how, it gave us a vision of how our habits and new patterns are forming. The moon in Capricorn allowed us to apply that inner vision in order to organize, control, and utilize these now currently integrating habits and techniques. All right. And now the moon in Aquarius is going to tie everything together. This is the classic Virgo signature, so that we can come into a knowledge of how it's all coming together. A higher advanced knowledge that is an extension of the higher vision of Sagittarius. Okay, now, of course, there are a lot of perceptions around how this works. I'm personally under the belief that the mythologies that have created, of course, ideas and myths, of course, around the planets and the nature of how astrology works is secondary to the actual mechanism of the universe, which I believe was created by an intelligent creator. who is actually a perfect expression of the universal force that connects all of us together, chi, chakra, nen. All right. So I see this as a coding system that actually enables you to transcend your program and design. So when you hear that astrology kind of limits you and traps you into your coding, that's not really astrology versus cultural interpretations of how astrology is played out. Like, think of Christianity, and you have a lot of denominations that cannot agree upon the Christology of Jesus Christ alone. You have certain denominations that split themselves over whether we allow children to get baptized or whether you have to be an adult to get baptized. And that's just off of one faith system. We see this in science with, different theories and camps around maybe how some people may interpret quantum mechanics or biology. We even see this philosophically with determinism. You have people who are more libertarianism. You have people who are more hard determinist. I kind of fall more on that hard determinism, compatibilism camp. But then you see this with astrology too, with the sidereal camp, who bases their interpretation on the constellations, and the tropical camp right here, who we know constellations are not zodiac signs. So we take a seasonal approach. So you don't want to necessarily conflate cultural interpretations of this science with the actual science, all right, and give kind of more power. I mean, whether you're a Gnostic and you believe a demiurge is controlling this fake matrix, please understand it was a divine principle who created this star system before any of that happened. And of course, the star system as we know it now didn't exist as it always did. If you believe it took like 13 billion years for everything to come out as it did. So there's a lot of nuance to what I'm saying. And I'm attempting to oversimplify this so I could fit this in this 15-20 minute video. So I want to get that out the way just so you don't feel like tapping into your own natal chart code is you just giving into a false matrix system. Shout out to Elisha Eternal. He shared me a video. It's actually why I want to say more. I practice astromancy versus just astrology, but I'm okay with either term. That's really just my personal perspective around how we practice this. Not as a system that you are a slave to the planet and that you cannot build your identity outside of your interpretation of your natal chart. Because what the actual code says incorporates so much more that we're not even aware of and we can't even perceive. We're only really tapping into less than 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum, which greatly limits how much potential we could tap into the coding of our own charts. That being said, Aquarius is the affinity of Virgo. So whereas like Scorpio rules the 8th house, and that's Gemini, Taurus rules the 2nd house, and that's Gemini, well, Pisces rules the 12th house, and that's Aquarius. Virgo rules the 6th house, and that's Aquarius. So Aquarius is Pisces and Virgo's affinity. And this is where, of course, what makes Virgo the master of consciousness ties into their advanced quality of knowing how to form these patterns and being able to instruct and guide others into more genius methods of integrating their day-to-day routine. And this is what this transit's going to help you understand while we're in the affinity of this Virgo signature during a Virgo season. And now let's compound that on the fact that the moon had to cross over Pluto and Aquarius, okay? And the moon over Pluto is reinitiating its 28-day cycle, as it will always go through Aquarius. Last 28 days, we were in Leo season. Now that it's in Aquarius, we're in Virgo season. Next 28 days when it's back, we'll be in Libra season. And this is why I always go in on aspects, because you can see how to look at the clock, right? This moon is the second hand clock, and the minute hand will move to the next sign, right? Or the hour hand. We can say it's really the hour hand if you want to look at the moon as the minute hand. But yeah, something to keep in mind. I like to look at the moon as the second hand, Mercury is like the minute hand, the sun is the hour hand, right? And then other outer planets is like different stuff. I want to manufacture luxury watches that read your time through transits, that could work for a heliocentric, geocentric model. But other than that, guys, get ready to come into a very extremely knowledgeable understanding, extreme because of Pluto, aka Hades, of how you are tying together this forming of these behavioral patterns. Because now this is going to express the effect of this energy we're integrating, this cosmic energy, which is through the form of knowledge, knowledge being the programming interface with which we can imagine in Pisces. So you're going to know a bunch of shit over the next 2 days, and then you're going to experience what you've programmed through the consistency you've put in your habits through the moon in Pisces. This is going to now change your beliefs to align with new habits you sowed the seeds for, and we will begin harvesting from Sunday to next Sunday. Where next week Sunday we will, of course, not this Sunday, but next week Sunday, we will, of course, complete the transit through the moon in Gemini. So yeah, everything that you balanced through the moon in Libra that activated this social understanding and potency, you're now strengthening the knowledge of through Aquarius. And with that Pluto bomb dropping aspect, this is going to deepen, or I could say extremely strengthen, the knowledgeability or the supernatural understanding or the knowledge around how with Pluto over the next 20 years, as we will have more Virgo season transits like this, you will be incorporating supernatural quality and phenomena into your day-to-day routine. And that's where the trine with the moon in Aquarius to Uranus in Gemini seeks to complete how we started the transit off with the sun squaring Uranus, opening squaring, making a 90-degree angle. So when we get to Pisces, whether it's still in Taurus or not, that'll be the closing square, which now the opening square begins to integrate unconventionality into our habits. And then Pisces season, that closing square now shapes the beliefs that, of course, take into account the unconventionality of our habits and how our beliefs are changed as a result. And then we're going to do it again for the rest of the decade. Which is what makes this year significant, because this is the first year where we're shifting gears. It's like you've gone to Six Flags every year of your life, but now this is the year where the way you enter the park is totally different. You don't have to use tickets anymore. It's just facial scanning, right? The rides are so much more advanced. You're beginning to look into the theme park. They're phasing out old generational rides, like rides you rode as a kid, rides you've seen people ride. Now they're starting to replace them with new rides. By this time next year, the whole park will be replaced with new rides, and we'll now implement these new technology systems. Best way I could put that. Now, of course, what makes this very significant too, with the planets like Venus coming out of Leo going into Virgo, is this will really give us the intellect and knowledgeable understanding of how our Venus polishing our passion goes into and influencing from your passion, influencing really how you're forming these behaviors. But the cool thing about the Aquarius transit here is that everything you've done since the new moon to plant these seeds at 0 degrees Virgo, we're tying it all together. I mean, bring it back to this analogy of making beats, cooking. By this stage, you've activated all the ingredients, and don't necessarily be put off by expecting grand results. It's truly the little things that you do here and there that will activate what you can move forward to consistently build on. So this is where you're taking everything, all the ingredients, you've already begun to mix them together. Now you're putting the final touches, the finishing touches, and you're going to understand how to add more to the unconventional quality of this, so that this knowledgeable understanding connecting with Uranus and Gemini ties this knowledgeable understanding of how to really form these patterns and connects it back to unconventional thinking that will help you understand and know how you have been incorporating it and what you can tweak about it. This will be revisited when the moon goes into Pisces and squares Uranus, so that we can now see how our beliefs have adopted what habits we formed. Now, for my ninjas, for my people who endure, okay, for my supers, right, for my gods in the building, for those of you who have already been demonstrating facets of the supernatural, right, the unconventional in your mundane work routines, like if you're a car mechanic versus even if you're an energy healer, I'm using the full spectrum of range. You have been forming new jutsu. You have been developing, and this is very important for those of you at this next step, where at the beginner phase is you're developing a habit, you're bringing consistency to change your behavior. At the now advanced stage, you have developed techniques, you have jutsu, right? You're going to understand how you are awakening more quality at a supernatural level to these jutsu. This is going to be the 1.5-day stretch where you're finally finalizing the Rasengan. This type of transit is what gave Naruto, I'm capping, but pretend this is true. This type of transit gave Naruto the genius breakthrough in realizing how to look left and right at the same time. If you want to bring in his nature element transformation as well, where he realized he needed a shadow clone in order to complete the technique, right? That's an idea of Uranus and Gemini. He had now had to innovate what his predecessors taught him in order to make the technique work for him. Traditionally, the Rasengan is used with the hand. I'm using the Rasengan to do this message. And he had to make a clone to make up for what maybe he couldn't do, which was innovative, which no one had ever done before. Of course, by the end of the series, mans can do it with one hand now. Yes, the peace dealer is the only astrologer who's going to use the making of the Rasengan to make a point. I know he's that cold. He's that nice. Whether he looks dusty or not, still sexy. That being said, I am developing my sexy behavior. And, setback or not, the goal is still the goal. And I'm carrying this unconventionality forward with me so that I don't necessarily let any setbacks get in the way of the radical thinking that will continue to increase over the rest of the decade. And as everything comes together, the moon in Aquarius will help you understand the knowing that will become the why when the moon is in Pisces. So this is where you're going to come into a lot more clarity. Things will make a bit more sense. Things will also be a bit more challenging so that through that friction you can grow. But as always, especially during mutable sign seasons, be willing to adapt, all right? Because we're still within, of course, eclipse territory, and the entire way with which you believe and how your habits form your beliefs are completely changing forever with Saturn's influence going back into Pisces. In fact, we are going to see Saturn retrograde back into Pisces by the time we have this full moon. So this is bringing everything in place. Once again, I do believe in free will, but not really. I actually am more of a hard determinist. So everything to me is already written, right? Free will, in the most part, is an illusion because the past defines, your past experiences define, of course, the makeup of your habits and really limit what you would do. For example, a lot of you in a given situation with children, 10 times out of 10, will save your child from a burning building if you had the opportunity. If there was no risk for you even being killed, you would go in. You don't really have the free will to not do it. Your instincts and the past relationship with your kid will really limit your options. You're either going to save the child or try to save the child, right? That's a horrible example. Where I'm more compatibilist is that you still are responsible for your decisions. So just because certain things are determined doesn't mean you don't have the free will to choose how certain things happen. And now I sound stupid as fuck. But I just wanted to share that to give you an idea of how I kind of look at these things and how I incorporate astrology. Not so that you can use this as an excuse to say, it was written in my stars, so I had to be. It's so that you can see potential paths, but then use your consciousness to shift yourself out of maybe what you don't choose. of course, within the limited range of what's possible for you to do, right? Like, I may have free will, but I'm never really going to be able to give birth to a child. I've made this over 20 minutes. I may not be able to upload this on Instagram anymore, but regardless, you guys stay blessed as always. And until next time.